20 years from now, your team will never remember if they hit your monthly production quotas, sales conversion goals, or your KPIs. What they will remember, though, is how you made them feel and the impact you had on them personally and professionally. So the question is, are you managing a business or are you building a legacy that attracts and retains the most exceptional talent? Well, today we're diving in on how to stop being the transactional boss so many of you are, and how to start being the transformational leader that has your employees talking about you around the community, remembering you for the rest of their lives, and going above and beyond a paycheck like so many of you want. So if you're ready, let's go.
Welcome to the Brian Wright Show, a podcast that transforms the lives and businesses of all entrepreneurs, but dedicated to doctors that own their own practice. And now your host. He's a husband, father of two, founder and CEO of New Patient Group and Right Chat, and a business consultant and speaker for Invisalign, OrthoFi, and others. Brian Wright.
Shout out Dr. Glenn Krieger for having me as a guest on your podcast again. Feedback has been great. I'm going to link that episode, everybody, in the description below. Make sure to give it a listen. We dive into a lot of really good topics. Today, March has arrived, and the transactional boss versus transformational leadership. This one is a great piggyback off of the 4 parenting types of business. That is my personal favorite episode we've done to date in 9 seasons. And if you haven't listened to that one, I'm going to link that one in the description below. Make sure to check it out because it's a really good precursor to set you up for understanding why you need to be a transformational leader. Start today with an interaction, with a story. And I want you, as I go through this, to be thinking, oh my God, is this me? Or I've had a boss like that and I don't want to be that person. So one Tuesday, Sarah, one of the top analysts for David, approached David, and she had spent the last 3 or 4 weeks streamlining the department's reporting process. She's really been working her butt off on this, and she really did a great job. She found a way from cutting a 6-hour task down to 2, and she was really enthused. She was really excited about showing David the new automation and the automated script that she had written that really helped save the company time. Now, she walks into David's office and puts it in front of David, and David doesn't even look up from the spreadsheet, right? For doctors out there, you're in your clin check. You don't even look up from the clin check. You don't even take the time to do it. And she sets it down, and David says to her, without even looking up, does the report meet the compliance standards for the Q3 audit? Sarah replies back, yes, it absolutely does. And it's much faster, which means David says good and interrupts her. So as long as it meets the standard, look, you fulfilled your objectives for the month. You'll see the performance bonus we discussed in your next check. Now let's talk about Wednesday, about the Wednesday inventory, that is. I want to look at the log. It was submitted at 9:05 a.m. Now, Sarah, remember, our agreement is 9 a.m. sharp. Let's make sure that doesn't happen again, or I'll have to mark it as needs improvement in the punctuality column. Now, the aftermath of this scenario, Sarah walks away after all of this great work, and she feels completely deflated. David later on is asking himself, what's wrong with Sarah? Right? She's got her bonus. And I accepted her spreadsheet and the automated text that's going to save the company time. Why is she moping around? Why is she not going beyond like before? Sarah feels deflated because she's innovated. She's saved the company hundreds of man hours and shown immense initiative. No one really even asked her to do this. This is something that Sarah did on her own. But see, to David, the transactional boss, the innovation was irrelevant. Didn't even cross his mind as being the best part of this. And it was irrelevant because it wasn't even a predefined goal. This wasn't a, hey, by the end of the quarter, we're going to get this done, right? This is something Sarah took on by herself because she wanted to help the company, her team, the entire business, and David. Now, the bonus that David gave out that he thought was legitimate was just a simple exchange for her basic labor. It wasn't for the innovation. It wasn't for the going beyond. It was a simple transaction between A and B, between David and Sarah. Now, the error, right, according to David, was the 5-minute delay, right? This was a breach of contract that required immediate correction, right? So the innovation thrown in the toilet, the future, and how this could help and maybe reduce not only air quotes man hours, maybe have less mistakes. People could work smarter, not harder. Maybe we don't need as many people. Right? So we're not always hiring. No. In David's mind, all of that didn't matter because it was 5 minutes late. Now, see, here's the result. I mean, there's companies that I speak for that are extremely transactional. A lot of times, I'm going to talk about this here in a little bit. Corporations fall into this transactional mistake because they are quarter by quarter, because they're trying to make sure that investors and the board and their stock price, everybody's happy. So they are constantly making short-term decisions that sabotage their long-term success. They are constantly making decisions based on numbers over people, relationships, and experiences that sabotage their long-term success, but they'll never see it that way. But back to the result. Under David's leadership, like I was talking about, or really lack thereof, the department never failed an audit. They were a well-oiled machine. However, Sarah, she stopped looking for ways to improve the scripts. Right? So you have a team that's rule followers, right? If they're supposed to be there at 8, they show up at 8. If their homework is supposed to be submitted at the first Monday of every month by 8 a.m., it's submitted every month by 8 a.m. But the days of Sarah going beyond and looking for ways to help the company, her team members, etc., those days are gone. And she realized by this interaction with David that doing extra did not change the transaction. So therefore, she started arriving exactly at 8:59 because they were supposed to be there at 9. And she started leaving at exactly 5 p.m. because that's when the day was over. See, so many of you ask yourselves, every single time my employees do anything extra, they always want to be paid for it. Where's the innovation from my team? Why don't they care? Why don't they show initiative? Why don't they show up early, stay late, work beyond a paycheck? So many of you ask yourselves that question. Well, David, he was happy because the metrics were stable. So many of you are like this, right? If you're hitting your production goal, you may be in a good mood that month, right? If you're hitting your production goal, you may not even be looking to invest in help because maybe you should have produced 30% more, but to you, you hit your goal, so okay. But see, David and many of you never realized that he had traded his team's potential for the mere compliance. See, by Sarah doing this, think about the potential that she brought to the table and the reaction by David that crushed the innovation, the thinking, the going beyond, crushed it. So because you're meeting maybe some transactional goals, and in this case, and what I'm talking about, the way David is leading, air quotes, because he's not leading at all, is that eventually the transactional boss and this transactional mindset will eventually cause the numbers to drop as well. Because everything is about numbers, compliance. It is not about innovation and vision and mindset and inspiration and helping change an industry. Right? The vision isn't there, the mission isn't there. See, transactional leadership, transactional bosses. I always hate to say, I always hate to say leadership whenever I say transactional, but it is a form of leadership, right? Like I said, like it can't, it doesn't mean it's horrible. It doesn't mean that a company can't be successful. But there's things that come with it, like the story I just told you. So I want to talk about some traits and things like that. So transactional bosses, it's really based on a form of an exchange. You know, I'll give you this salary, this bonus, this praise, and you give me that output, be compliant, make sure you're working the right hours. And this happens inside our niche, inside your practices. You give me your money in exchange, I'll put you in Invisalign, right? And I'll do a great job. I'll put you in braces, I'll do a great job. Whatever it is, whether type of doctor, right? You pay me money, I'll put food in your table. You pay me money, I'll give you a hotel room, right? It's pragmatic and it's very structured. A lot of you can fall into the transactional boss, transactional leader. If you do things like this is how you can know that you're making this mistake. And I want you, as I'm going through this, have you ever worked for a boss like this? Are you a boss like this? Do you try to lead this way? And can you understand, like the story of David and Sarah that I just told you, why somebody like Sarah, because part of the aftermath is Sarah's now looking for another job. Not only is she not going to go beyond and come up with new ideas and work harder and help support her team members, right? She's going to be in a corner and she's just going to show up and leave, do her work, be compliant. And it just holds the innovation. It holds the progress. It holds all these great things that your people could help you achieve. It never happens. And then guess what? Those people, they don't work there anymore. And can you understand why great people wouldn't want to work for David, even though numbers are being hit and things like this? So many office managers are like this. So many organizations are like this. So many doctor business owners are like this. And so many owners and all other kind of businesses that we help are like this too. You know, I come in today and I pay you in full for Invisalign. Here's $6,000. Let's do it. Then Janice walks in tomorrow, wants to start Invisalign, but she can't put any money down. But she's saved up, so she's comfortable paying monthly. And you say no. Right? That's an example of being transactional. You're a transactional boss because, again, it's a means of exchange. It's based on a system of exchange, like I'm talking about. Right? Instead of understanding, hey, when Brian paid me $6,000, right, he paid the lab fee for Invisalign for a couple other starts in case those people need us to go down on the down payment. Again, for affordability, flexibility. I'm not teaching any of you to take nothing down. And what I am teaching you, though, is, again, how to be the highest priced, but also affordable and flexible. But really the lesson right now is if you're looking at it transactionally, you will not have the ability to understand that the paid in full yesterday covered 2 or 3 lab fees to allow other people to get started at a much more affordable, flexible way. Your mind doesn't look at it that way. Like David's mind in the David Sarah story would never be able to differentiate because it's transactional. It's a means of exchange, a system of exchange. And like I said, it's pragmatic and it's extremely structured and it can't go beyond that. Right? And the key traits of these transactional bosses are they're very focused on rules, procedures, and very focused on short-term goals. And it's very uninspiring and usually has very high employee turnover with the ones that have potential to be the great ones you've always wanted, right? Maybe they're already there, right? You turn them off, or maybe they have the potential, you turn them off. This is how you don't attract great talent. It's how you don't keep it. It's because your whole organization is transactional. Like I was saying earlier, many corporations, I have a podcast, and again, I don't know when you obviously hear me talk about it a lot on here about story for another time, podcast for another time. I don't know when, but I think the dilemma that corporations have that are trying to get the small business to sell their stuff, like Invisalign as an example, the dilemma is that everything like Invisalign, Align Technology does is short term for the quarter because we've got to meet these projections quarter by quarter. An important lesson for everybody that listens that works for Invisalign as an example, and OrthoFi and all the other corporate Straumann and all the other corporations I speak for, as well as all the other corporations I don't speak for where the reps listen and the executives listen, is that to be an exceptional entrepreneur that has small business owners or small businesses and how they need to thrive, the thought process can never be short term. See, business owners, you can't be worried quarter to quarter. Your decisions today need to have an impact in a year. Doesn't mean that you won't see the result for a year, but that's what the long-term thinking is. 2 years, 3 years. Like if I'm going to start outsourcing more, if I'm going to go higher share to chair with Invisalign, those kind of things are not short-term decisions and they're not going to see short-term results. Transactional companies, transactional corporations, transactional entrepreneurs, transactional bosses aren't going to be able to see a year from now and able to stomach, maybe we're going to have 11 months of the numbers being down because everything's changing and all of it's changing with the focus on the vision, new job descriptions, a whole new way of doing it, right? We're going to have to get rid of some employees that just won't come around. We're going to have to replace the team members and eventually 12 months from now, 24 months from now, eventually we will get there because we're doing the right thing, following our vision, et cetera, which we're going to dive into much more here momentarily. See, transactional companies and people, they don't think like that. Great entrepreneurs is exactly how they think. Long term. And we're not going to pay attention. The data isn't what's going to tell us if it's working. There's all other kinds of things we'll talk about here in just a second. But you can see, well, small business and entrepreneurs, we can't think that way. But there's so many of you out there that have small businesses that do think this way. Oftentimes, and you hear me talk about this all the time on how numbers on paper are liars. But if you listen to the college professors that have never owned a business in their life, they teach people that if the numbers don't show it, if you don't see it on numbers, then it isn't true. If you don't see the numbers on paper, then it isn't true. So whatever you see, that's the story. Use that to make your decisions. That's transactional thinking because every number you see on paper is a liar. None of them tell the truth, which we believe on here. We've done several podcasts around, and we'll talk about a little bit when I hit the transformational side I need all of you to become. These people oftentimes, too, are tripping over dollars to pick up pennies all day long because they can't differentiate cost versus an investment. They don't understand how costs help you keep your doors open today. But an investment produces a return on your time, efficiency, effort, production, revenue, sales, whatever, new customers, new patients, whatever it may be. Right? You can never put those into one category, but that's how so many of you do, and it's how all the corporations do it. Money going out versus money coming in. Right? But you fail to realize that some of that money going out is creating the money coming in. That's an investment. Right? You're never going to look at, again, buying a stock and go, well, that's a cost. So that's an investment. There's a return on that, which is exactly why your cost and investment, money going out, that is, can never be categorized into one column. It's asinine that anybody would count those in one column. That's how all the corporations do it. So that's how almost every practice in our niche out there does it. Almost every restaurant, any other type of business we help, all they do it. Then that defines your profit. It's all bull. It's all bogus. Especially because as an entrepreneur, part of your goal is to make more and work less, right? So you have to be investing in things that's going to allow you to make more and work less. That is not the same as your electricity bill or an employee that's not a rock star, right? They're just helping you keep the doors open today. Those kind of things. Transactional bosses don't have the well-being of their team. Like burnout is a huge part of businesses run by transactional bosses. Burnout is a big thing. They don't have the well-being of their employees in mind. They haven't really taken it into account, and they haven't taken it into account, or maybe they have, but it's placed on the back burner compared to sales quotas, production numbers, and other numbers. Like again, going back, this is why a lot of corporations have such high turnover, right? They're putting quotas ahead of the employee's well-being. Now, this is not to say that the quotas don't matter in production and revenue and sales and quarterly goals and a stock price. Of course, all of it matters. But there's a way to get those things on autopilot, and being transactional isn't part of that recipe. You know, if you go ask most transactional boss, what are the names of the kids of the 6 people on your team? They have no idea. You know, go to any one of your people and tell me what their favorite food is. They have no idea. Are they married? What's their husband's name? No idea. What's their kid's favorite sport? No idea. You know, how did they grow up? Did they grow up with supportive parents? Did they grow up poor, rough upbringing? No idea. Because that kind of stuff in their mind has nothing to do with the performance and the overall statistics. Quotas. Are you being compliant? But like I said, there's some pros. It's an incredibly efficient for high stakes, routine driven environments like emergency rooms, right? Manufacturing, deliveries, which I'm going to be bringing up in one of my all time favorite stories in just a minute when we transition over to the transformational. The cons are everything I've said, right? It can stifle creativity. It can lead to burnout because the human element is secondary. You know, this is back in the day. There are several, if you ever watch Airplane Disasters, it's a great show. And I like it because, you know, flying planes, like having my license like I do, I enjoy watching it because you're watching all these experienced pilots. Most of them are commercial on there. And what the show does is recreate all of the crashes throughout history. So they have actors as the pilots and the passengers and all that stuff. And it's interesting because the pilots do a lot of really stupid things, and it kind of keeps my mind fresh on how dangerous it can be. It doesn't have to be, but if a pilot with thousands of hours makes a mistake when the heat is on, you know, it really makes you look in the mirror and go, hey, you can make this mistake. You need to study, you need to be better. Well, there are crashes throughout history that happened because the pilots were tired, right? They made bad decisions because they were tired. They were burnt out. But the leadership, for lack thereof, was thinking, how many more hours can we get out of them? How many more flights can we get? Right? They're thinking transactionally because they want to see more revenue, sales, profit, right? So they don't pay attention of the well-being of their people. They overwork them. And in this case, it's caused airplane crashes in the past. Now, those days are gone. Like there's regulatory things. There are, whether you're transformational, transactional, because even the airlines, almost everybody's still transactional. They're corporations, but they're not allowed to work the pilots like they used to. It's another reason why air safety has gotten so much better. And all this, like I said, it all reduces morale. It crushes innovation. Like Sarah's never going to, you imagine Sarah ever doing anything innovative for that company again? It's never going to happen. People are, they're not going to go beyond. They're not going to go beyond a paycheck like so many of you want. And the people that are great or have the potential to be great, like I said, they're out your door. They're history. Just like this Sarah example. She's looking for other places to work that'll appreciate her innovation right away. And meanwhile, David's like, what's wrong with Sarah? I don't understand. She just got a bonus. Right? It's very, very difficult for transactional leaders to understand what the real problem is. This is why, hey, my employees don't want to work. I can't get them to show up. They won't go beyond. Like, I just can't find good people. No, you're transactional. The good people that you have, you've sucked them dry, and now they're just like all the other people. Or Joey, who had all the potential in the world when he showed up, you were transactional and never spent the time developing him. That, among many other reasons, are where your issues are. One of my favorite stories of all time that fits so perfectly into what we're talking about is Howard Schultz, CEO of Starbucks, and his healthcare mission for all. Now, this one is going to allow me to spin into other podcasts, having a vision, sticking to your vision, making sure vision trumps numbers, making sure if what your vision is, maybe you go 6 months, a year, even 2 years, and the numbers aren't up to par while you're trying to meet your vision, you still stick with making decisions that are going to support your vision, because eventually you're going to come out in the marathon game of life a winner. So Howard Schultz grew up, and this is one of these things, like, no matter how you grow up, whether it's poor, whatever it is, you have an opportunity to become somebody great that's influential, that changes an industry. This is a perfect example. Schultz grew up in public housing in Brooklyn. And when he was only 7, his father, a delivery driver, and remember that I said earlier, delivery companies, right? Transactional can equal success. But then you ask yourself, what is success, right? It could equal success on paper, but what if they could be 1,000% better on paper if they were transformational, right? Well, because his father was a driver and broke his ankle, well, because he was a transactional unit of labor with no benefits. So guess what happened to him? Transactional people looked at him, said, you're fired. You don't have benefits. You really don't have rights. You're a delivery driver. You broke your ankle. Well, guess what? Your means of helping us transact, they're gone. Can't drive. You're fired. So Schultz watched his father lie on the couch in a cast, hopeless, helpless, and each and every day that went by just being stripped of his overall dignity. Now, the transformational effect, the transformational pivot, if you will, that came from really a very just unfortunate transactional situation is when Howard Schultz built Starbucks, he didn't just want to sell coffee. Matter of fact, nowhere in the mission or in the vision is it we're going to have great coffee. In fact, they have crappy coffee, genetically modified, chemical-based food that isn't even real, right? That doesn't hurt their sales, right? Their sales are, and their lines out the door are packed in every airport you go to. Meanwhile, you look at other coffee shops that are probably better and they're empty, right? So this also shows you, and it's something that I teach on here, is just because you have the best product doesn't mean you're going to make the most sales and the most money. Just because you have the best product doesn't mean you're going to attract the best talent or develop the best talent that has potential. Starbucks is the perfect example that I use all the time. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive to be the best, which I think Starbucks should do a better job at, but not the point. When he built Starbucks, he didn't want to sell just coffee. He wanted to create the company his father never got to work for. So the movie made in 1988, he became one of the first CEOs to offer full health insurance benefits to part-time workers. It was very controversial, right? If you're transactional, you're going to look at that and go, okay, full-time benefits, but only part-time work. How does that equate? Right? But for Howard Schultz, it went way beyond it. And like I said, the numbers conflict was what I just said. Part-time work, but you're getting full-time benefits. On paper, that just doesn't make sense. Transactional people can't get off the paper. Right? So the numbers conflict went beyond that. In fact, during the 2008 financial crisis, institutional investors were begging Schultz to cut the healthcare plan, which would save Starbucks $300 million. So the transactional people were all over Howard Schultz, who's a transformational leader that doesn't give a damn about numbers on paper. And it's not that the numbers don't matter. It's that the numbers on paper aren't why Starbucks existed. So Howard Schultz has a famous quote refusing to cut the healthcare plan. And it says, if you think our benefit programs are too rich, you don't understand what drives Starbucks' success. Now, many of you out there, one of your goals is to find, retain great talent, have less turnover, right? Maybe lose the people that you really don't want anyway, and keep the great people, which is the sign that your culture is really great and a sign you're doing great with leadership. Is if you're people that don't match your culture after you try to develop them, if they leave, that's a good thing. If the people that do meet your culture and have potential, you're developing them and these people stay, it's a sign that you have a good culture. Too many of you, it's the other way around. You lose the good ones and the bad ones stay, or you lose everybody. So this lesson is so important because Starbucks employee turnover, because the move Howard Schultz made of not thinking short term, right? If he would have cut that and saved $300 million, he knew that short term, the books would have looked better. The institutional investors would have been more happy, right? The stock price would have looked better. He knew it. But it wasn't about the money. It was about people. He made decisions based on people, relationships, experiences, no matter how hard it was or is. That's what moved him. Always looking back to, if I cut it and save 300 million, is that what our mission is? Is that what the vision is? And very clearly that answer was no, and that's why he didn't do it. And so many of you out there need to understand, from a transactional standpoint, you are making decisions based on numbers. Transformational people make decisions based on vision, innovation, experiences, people, because that's what business is all about. Business is not about numbers. It's about people, humans. Your employees are real people.
What I can honestly say is that I come away a better person and a better treatment coordinator every event I attend. It pushes me to do things outside of my comfort zone and grow.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's not always easy, but it always is worth it.
This is my first TC event here with the new patient group, and I have to say I am blown away with everything that's being thrown at me. So much information, so much excitement that's come from this weekend just alone, and to be new at this and to have all of this information is just very exciting, and I can't wait to go home and share this with my entire team.
I'm just super happy that I came. Absolutely amazing, the energy and all the innovative ideas that they've been bringing. I'm so excited to apply them to our office back home. Everyone's been great to collaborate with and bounce ideas off of.
I just wanted to say how truly grateful I am to be here for this TC Iconic. There's so many things that I've learned to take home to my office and implement now within my office, but then my personal life too. All in all, I'm a big fan of MPG.
Thank you so much to all of our fabulous treatment coordinators that have attended Iconic and that work with New Patient Group. You know we are the way of the now and the future, and you heard it from them. You need to not only bring your treatment coordinator, But the beauty this year, this iconic is a full team iconic, all around transformational leadership, how elite people businesses attract and retain the greatest talent. And when you set your culture up like we're going to teach you, there is no stopping your practice. Growth will never be an issue again. I'm going to be there. Eric Field, our Chief Operational Officer, is going to be there. Haley Jeffrey, our VP of Marketing. David runs social media. Us four are going to be your speakers, your coaches in this immersive learning environment with role plays, exercises, quizzes, games. Interact with the whole audience, get better, and learn the skill sets to not only become great, but when you get back to your office, be able to implement it, transform your culture, and set your practice up for many great years ahead. We look forward to seeing you. I'm going to put a registration link in the description below. Click that. It'll describe more about our full team iconic in September in Nashville. It's going to let you know all the registration details. You can even buy tickets right online. So if you're enjoying today's podcast, we're going to take it to a whole nother level in September in Nashville for the iconic transformation event. Bring your whole team. We'll see you there. And now let's get back to today's episode. So even though the numbers on paper would have looked good, he also knew, one, like I said, wasn't what his mission was, but two, he also knew that was short term. Because Starbucks employee turnover rate, like I said, became a fraction of the industry average. Think about that. You want less turnover, transactional people, you're never going to have it. Right? Starbucks employees became so loyal to the company that he also knew that if he would have done it and cut 300 million, while on paper everything looks great, guess what? Turnover goes up. You lose people, hard to retrain people. It costs a ton of money to retrain people and hire and all that crap. He knew it. He knew that eventually, long term, it would cost the company way more than 300 million just because of turnover and retraining and all the stuff. And he proved that caring for a person's health, and again, this is not about health insurance. This is not about health. This is about whatever vision, whatever mission you have. And if you don't have one, it's about having one too. Is that for him, because of his father, a person's health was way more valuable to the bottom line than a short-term savings of $300 million. And this so proves true for so many corporations out there that cannot see beyond the damn data sheet. For so many small businesses out there, entrepreneurs, that you can't see beyond the damn data sheet. And this is the perfect example of how $300 million looks good on paper, but it's a liar in so many different ways. By not doing it, did it work out better for that company? You all know, and I tell this when I'm doing exercises with the audience on stage, the same thing with the Blockbuster story. Right? The Blockbuster story is one of the greatest stories on why what they teach in college could not be further from truth to be successful as an entrepreneur. I love, when Blockbuster was king of the mountain. I didn't even plan on telling this story today, but I think it rings so true. When Blockbuster was king of the mountain and Netflix was just beginning, a lot of people know the beginning part of this story, but they don't know what actually sabotaged Blockbuster's success. So Netflix presented their ideas to the president of Blockbuster. Netflix idea was either sell it to them, partner with them, whatever it may be. Let's go in on it with Blockbuster. Blockbuster's president saw the presentation, saw the future, was totally bought in. Wanted to buy it, wanted to be in business with it, whatever it may be. The president of Blockbuster was all in. The president of Blockbuster goes to the board of Blockbuster and says, here's the deal. The future is changing. This company presented these ideas to me. I love it. It's the future. Let's buy them. Let's partner with them. Whatever it may be, let's completely transform Blockbuster into the future on how streaming's going to be and media and all this stuff. Blockbuster board says, no way, not doing it. President says, why? How could we miss this opportunity? Board tells the president, well, right now, 12% of our entire revenue that we bring in is because of late fees. So, guys, this is one of the greatest transactional versus transformational leadership stories of all time. Blockbuster sabotaged their entire corporation because of 12% of their revenue coming from late fees. Right? The MBAs, all the wizards couldn't see beyond the damn data sheet and sabotage their entire King of the Hill corporation. This is how it works. It happens to so many of you every single day. And it's unfortunate because I'm not saying it's easy, but when you start making decisions like Howard Schultz and stop making decisions like Blockbuster, making decisions based on, right, the things you really can't measure, and stop making decisions based on what you see on paper, that is all bull, it's all a liar. And this goes back to why the smartest business people in the world don't have a college degree. 75% of billionaires, no college degree, right? They're lifelong learners. They go against what the majority do. They're constantly learning, constantly innovating. They make investments in the innovation. They do everything to get their product in somebody's hands, not because of the sale, not because of the number, but because they want to transform an industry, transform the world, transform whatever. You get the point. And really, in the end, transformational leadership is about changing the mindset of a following, whether that be your employees. I mean, that's, when I say I'm a transformational leader, a lot of times I'm not even talking about inside my own organizations where I try to be. What I'm talking about is a transformational leader for all of you out there in whatever respective industries you're in, but especially in our niche inside the orthodontic world and in other worlds where doctors own their own business. I want to be that transformational leader because that's what I'm trying to do, is completely change the mindset of an entire industry. From the corporations I speak for to the practices that hire a new patient group for us to work with, to whatever it may be, I want to change the mindset of how you've always done it, how all of you always have been told to do it, and how you're told to do it by inside the bubble people. I want to flip it all in its head, right? The numbers are not what drives me. The numbers with new patient group are not what gets me to make the decision. When I made the decision to rebrand this into the Brian Wright Show, it was a lot of risk. We have a huge follower. We had a huge following with the new patient group podcast name. I didn't do it because there's very specific reasons I rebranded it to help me be the transformational leader that I want to be for all of you, and that I want all of you to be inside your own organizations. And it's really going beyond your own self-interest for the sake of a higher, greater goal. Just like the Howard Schultz example. And key traits with this, it's charisma, it's intellectual stimulation, right? It's things like, I've never done this. I've talked about it. It's things like having your employees read books and provide book reports and bonus off of that, right? Extra credit, right? There's a little insight to some of my organizations and some of the things we teach in future podcasts. Like, stop with the damn transactional bonuses, right? Stimulate the intellect of your team. Teach them things that their parents didn't. That's why the previous podcast, or I guess 2 podcasts ago, the parenting podcast was so powerful. One of my all-time favorites. It's individual consideration. It's understanding your people. It's knowing your people. It's wanting to know your people. It's knowing that, hey, make believe name, Janice comes from a horrible upbringing, living in one bedroom with 5 kids. Dad was a pothead. Mom wasn't involved. She drank all the time. Right? It's having an opportunity to be the transformational figure in that person's life and give them opportunity that they haven't had before based on how they were raised. Right? Those are the things that get people to want to innovate for you, want to work hard for you, want to go beyond for you. It's not about the numbers. If you're wanting a high level employee engagement, wanting them to go beyond and think for themselves and be innovative and not be scared to make it, a lot of times, kind of going back to that David Sarah story, which I'm going to recreate here in just a minute on how a transformational leader would look at that. If you go back to that story, it wasn't about innovation at all. Right? For David, she was late, 5 minutes late. He sabotaged everything she did and had her go want to work somewhere else over 5 minutes. That's not how you create long-term loyalty. Right? And transactional leaders, that's the other thing, transactional leaders, it's the same thing. Like they're not investing in improving the patient experience, the customer experience. They're not investing in doing better digital marketing content. They're not investing in advancing their employees and careers, developing their people. So it always goes back to you develop the people, you grow your people, let them grow your business. Advertising out your doors does nothing other than amplify the problems you already have. You could say that 1,000 times to 1,000 business owners, and 999 of them still will go out and think advertising is their problem. And that is why the famous companies are famous. They do it all different. One of them is being transformational. The long-term loyalty is always nice. Finding great people. I guess the cons of being a transformational leader, and I live in this, because the cons are, when you push people to be better because you care, when you make them go beyond because they have it in them to become something great. If you're the first person that's ever had those expectations for them, right, it creates a high employee turnover, but the people that leave are the ones that shouldn't be working for you anyway. Right? This is how you keep your great ones. This is how you develop maybe average ones into becoming great. And this is how you create a culture that weeds out the bad ones. Or maybe they're not bad people. They just don't fit your culture and the vision and what you're trying to do for your customer, your patient, whatever it may be. And it's hard to maintain, right? Like this podcast, we haven't done, and I keep telling all of you out there, more guests are coming, and they are. It's just been timing conflicts, and I'm working my best on it. But coming up with new ideas for all of you. I mean, I not really having guests. We're in season 9. I can't tell you how many hours I spend studying and organizing and trying to come up with new things for all of you. It's exhausting. Trying to change all of your mindset to stop seeking advice from inside your bubble people. Stop asking your peers for permission to do things. Pick a vision, get a mission, find companies that are going to help you achieve it, and go do it regardless of what your peers think. That's what you do. That's a transformational leader. Easier said than done for many of you, especially in the consumer bell curve. If you're not fitting in the innovator or the early adopter and you're falling in the majority or laggards, you're the ones calling, asking for permission all the time. It is exhausting trying to change mindsets. It is exhausting trying to develop your people. It is exhausting trying to teach your people good life skills so they're making good decisions in their personal life, which sets them up to become a better employee when they walk through the door, vice versa, making sure that they're working hard, their mindset at work, and they're going beyond, and they're being bonus, not just for numbers, but for, again, going beyond, like Sarah. Right? She went beyond. She wasn't even asked to do it. Right? The bonus should be for going beyond, the innovation. It shouldn't be for the number or the fact that it met the Q3 audit that David said in that story. And it's also hard because you have to stick to it even when numbers are crap. Think about that. It's just there's so many things about being transformational that like you can't be in a bad mood. Like you've got to be the motivator. You have to be the innovator. You always got to be coming up with new ideas. You always have to be selling the new idea. You always have to be selling the new mindset. Or you've got to be doing all that, even if your company's in the crapper. You know, whether your company's in the crap, like it's easy when the company's doing great, but if your practice is in the crapper, being this type of leader is freaking hard. That's why it's also a trained skill set. That's why most people, when the plane is working well, anybody can fly a plane. That's why most people, regardless, can call an outer safe call at first base when everything's going great. But whenever the shit hits the fan in the airplane, or whenever someone's screaming at you in your face in front of 60,000 people, then the next thing that you do, right? There's not many people that can do that. Just like this, there's not many transformational leaders because it's hard. It's easy to pay somebody $5,000 a month for pay-per-click and tell everybody to just show up on time, leave early, leave on time, do your job, be compliant, meet your audits. That's easy. But it doesn't get the most out of people. It comes with higher turnover. Your numbers, even if you hit quotas, will never be what they otherwise could. You will always be sabotaging your long-term success for short-term possible gain. You're never going to have an impact in people's lives. So many of you know some of the stories with my other company, Right Chat. So many of you know the backgrounds because, we've had people talk at our iconic event. And so many of you know how much I care about them. So many of you, and you can't hide that. You can't lie about that. But so many of you just, are we going to meet our new patient goals? Where's our production for the month? That's all you talk about. Hey guys, we're short on production. We need a couple more starts. Everybody bust it. Blah, blah, blah. It's not what moves people. It's not what drives people, especially the younger generations, by the way, with so many of you complain about, but there's nothing wrong with them. Outside of their parents screwed them, which again, go back and listen to that podcast last month. I'm going to link it in the description below. Outside of their parents screwing them, the media and schools screwing them, and the fact that we live in a form of socialism, there's nowhere in the world where socialism exists where people go above and beyond and get the most out of themselves and find their unique talents and hold themselves accountable and do the right things and sacrifice so they can make more later and they can move up the ranks and advance their career. Right? That doesn't exist in socialism. Never has, never will. And that's one of the reasons we're falling into the trap here of people don't want to work as hard. Right? And that stuff is true, which means you've got to be the transformational leader in order to develop them, change their mindset, get the most out of them, because unfortunately their parents didn't, the media brainwashed them, the schools brainwashed them, and now you're stuck with them as a business owner, and you can either complain and whine about it or become the transformational leader that I need all of you to become. Know your people. Ask them if they're okay. They're real people. They have real problems. Teach them about finances because a lot of the hourly employees, they make dumb ones every day. And I'll give you a quick example is that they show up every day with Starbucks coffee and Starbucks breakfast, and then they go out to lunch. Guess what? If you're being paid $36,000 or $40,000 a year, you shouldn't do that. You should have coffee at home. You should make your lunches and bring that with you. It will save you so many thousands upon thousands of dollars over the course of your career that you could have invested, right? But they don't think that way. You got to teach them. Because if they thought that way, that means their parents taught them, right? School's not going to teach them any of that stuff. Right? That's why I say school doesn't teach you leadership, doesn't teach you sales, doesn't teach you hospitality, doesn't teach you going beyond, doesn't teach you work ethic, doesn't teach you how to file taxes, doesn't teach you how to save from paying taxes. Doesn't teach you how to hire, doesn't teach you how to have a tough conversation, doesn't teach you how to make a better culture. I could go on and on and on why, in many ways, it's worthless. And I've got a business degree from Maryland. I think the whole thing's a joke. I wish I didn't even go. I did it to satisfy my parents because they wanted me to go. Went to business school, and literally every single thing I learned was a bunch of crap, bunch of transactional bullcrap. I want to recreate the David and Sarah story. And then I want to bring up some quizzes, if you will, some questions, if you will. I'm going to use Elena this time, not David. So Sarah approaches Elena with the same news. She's automated a 6-hour task down to 2. She's nervous about this though, because she technically spent time on the script instead of her assigned filing. Okay, so I want you to see what just happened. Right? Sarah went off the cuff, and instead of doing what her, I guess, the compliant way of doing it, and see, this is why so many transactional people, you screw yourself. Because you look at paper and hey, everything looks good. You look at your compliance data and everything seems efficient. Everything seems well oiled, right? But your people aren't going on. It's like an assembly line, right? It's like government workers. Like they're never going to go beyond. They check in, they check out, blah, blah, blah. If you ever want your people to go beyond for you and come up with ideas that are great, right? You can't be transactional. Just like this, like you saw, like Sarah, based on David's interaction, she's friggin' nervous. She's like, oh my God, I know I should have been doing something else that was my actual job, right? But I didn't. I went beyond that and I delivered something that's going to save us a lot of hours. Right? So let's look at the interaction, right? She shows that to Elena. Now, Elena pushes her ClinCheck aside, right? Her keyboard aside, right? So the orthos listening out there, right? You're in your ClinCheck for Invisalign or whatever aligner you're doing, and you're like, you know what, my employee wants my time. I'll push that aside, right? So Elena pushes her keyboard aside and gives Sarah her full attention. Right? You did what now? Show me. I want to learn more. So as Sarah demonstrates the script, Elena doesn't just check for compliance. She looks at the potential of both what Sarah has done, but also Sarah, the potential that Sarah could have to do more of this, right? To keep going beyond for the organization, right? To get a promotion, whatever it may be. She's now looking at Sarah's like, whoa, like we have somebody here that we need to spend time developing. So as Sarah demonstrates this script, as I said, Elena doesn't just look at it as compliance. She looks at the potential. So Sarah, this just isn't a time saver for our department, she says. If we scale this, we could free up the entire regional team. Hell, we could free up the entire company from grunt work. And we can go, and this is why I teach all of you outsourcing, by the way, off the cuff from my story, is that all of you are in it every day doing grunt work. When if you outsource, let them do the grunt work, you could reinvest your time into things that grow your freaking business, your practice. And yeah, on paper, could that look like more? But again, the investment is allowing you to free up your time. Smart people invest to save time on things that grow you rather than keep you open. Some people will just never get that, no matter how many times I explain it. If you're transactional, you will never understand it. How did you think of using this specific logic, Sarah? This is amazing. I'm so proud of you. So they spend 20 minutes whiteboarding how this script could be expanded, how it should be expanded. Elena doesn't mention the 9:05 a.m. arrival from Wednesday. She knows that Sarah was late. Shouldn't care. Hell, she's thinking, geez, if I could get this kind of innovation out of everybody, hell, they could be late all the time. Because I know they're spending time helping advance their teammates, advance their own careers, advance the business forward. So the 5-minute late thing didn't even cross her mind. The non-compliance of 5 minutes didn't even cross her mind, which transactional people out there, it's all you can think of, just like David. So instead, she says, I noticed you've been diving deep into data automation lately. And it's even caused you to be late sometimes, which I love because if you're coming up with this kind of innovation, who cares about 5 minutes? Who cares about compliance? Who cares about your time clock? If I can clear some of your routine tasks, would you be interested in leading a mini workshop for the rest of the team on this? So Elena is going, this is a person with potential. This is a person that needs further leadership training. This is a person that can transform the business regionally, globally, nationally, whatever. Now, the aftermath of this, everybody, is Sarah feels so great. She feels rewarded. She feels listened to. She feels that the extra work that she did on her own, it's motivating her to do more and more. And I don't know if you noticed, but in this story, Sarah was never bonused. What Sarah received was opportunity. Opportunity to advance her career, opportunity to have her voice heard, opportunity to know that as she does these things and goes beyond, she's going to receive praise. She's going to have further opportunity to speak in front of the organization so they hear her voice and move up the ladder. See, transformational leaders are concerned about their people. They want to see their people succeed. They want to see their people thrive. They want to build their people so the people can build the business. They're not worried about compliance, time clocks, data. They want to see and they want to care about their people personally and professionally. Elena is an example of somebody that would know Sarah's kids. She would know their names and what they do and what they like. Right? She would send them a birthday card whenever that came around, or a new soccer ball if they love soccer. She would put her arm around Sarah if Sarah felt down in the dumps, asking her what's wrong. Is everything okay? You need some time to think about this. This is transformational leadership, everybody. Another podcast I'm definitely going to have in the future is around the 4 keys to transformational leadership, or intellectual stimulation. It's individualized consideration, which we just talked about. It's also when I say consideration, I also include communication in that. It's inspirational motivation and it's idealized influence. And in that podcast, I don't know when we're going to do it, maybe a follow-up to this one based on how we're doing this and going through it and how I've heard people are really enjoying it. I need you all to understand that you may or may not like you may be saying, I just want my business to run smooth. I don't want to know my employees' kids' names, or what you have to understand is that this is the recipe of it running smooth. And it's not a recipe that has 3 ingredients. It's not a recipe that has 10. There's hundreds of things that go into transformational leadership and other things that are going to get it there, but you can't be transactional and have the impact on your customers, your employees, your patients, and the industry that you survive in. Nobody gets motivated with transactional leaders. 2 more things about this story that I want to talk to you about. Before, we talked about the aftermath after Sarah left David's office and how that aftermath wasn't good. She felt depleted, deflated, unmotivated. The days of her going beyond are over. Well, that conversation that I just talked to you about is now Sarah is leaving Elena's office on a natural high. She doesn't need the drugs to do it. She may need the drugs after leaving David's office, but she's on a natural high leaving Elena's. She wasn't just told that she did a good job. She was told her contribution mattered. And see, in Elena's eyes, the innovation was seen as a sign of leadership, not a deviation from the script, if you will, not a deviation from compliance. because Sarah knew she was supposed to be doing something else, but she chose to do something else. And Elena loved it. The relationship shifted from boss and employee to mentor. And this is why this podcast is going to just bring us into so many others, because the mentor piece is a sign of leadership, everybody. Your best clinical assistant in the back shouldn't be in a leadership role unless they're being trained on how to coach and how to be a mentor and give feedback and make other people better, like a mentor protege relationship. The goal was no longer just a paycheck for Sarah. It was the ripple effect of her working to help others. Now she's going beyond a paycheck, where with David, not so much. So the result of that, so different than the David relationship, is Sarah doesn't just stick to the 9 to 5. She stays late on Tuesday because she's genuinely excited about the workshop. She wants to make the workshop great. Now she's thinking even more how to build on her idea and create the presentation. She starts looking for other problems to solve too, right? Before Elena even asks, because she knows if she brings them to Elena how the reaction's going to be. There isn't a chance in hell she's going beyond for David. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen because of how David reacts. Now, the team's productivity doesn't just say stable, compliant, quota-based. It compounds. It goes way beyond that. Elena has helped create a culture of owners, of going beyond, both for the customer, the patient, and each other internally. This is how you create a culture of owners rather than a culture of renters that come and go, everybody. Okay, it's quiz time. Let's see if you paid attention, if you will. Let's go through a few scenarios. The first one I'm going to call the missed deadline. I remember David and Sarah. The situation is a reliable employee misses a major project deadline for the very first time because they were overwhelmed by a sudden surge in client requests. Now, a couple things here. I want you to pick which option is the transactional boss, which option is the transactional, or excuse me, the transformational leader. But I also want you to self-reflect here and see if you've acted the transactional way in the past. Or maybe that's just how you handle things on a consistent, ongoing basis. And this self-reflection, I want you to be able to handle it the other way, whichever way you define as transformational. All right, so option A, this is how you respond. You missed the target, which triggers a formal warning. I'm going to have to warn you now. But if you hit the next 3 deadlines on time, I'll scrub the warning from your record. I'll even give you a bonus. Right? And I want you to think back just a little bit with the David scenario that I gave, as well as the Elena and Sarah scenarios. You notice the second one, not only was it better, and you have a wonderful employee response. And that second one, I mentioned this earlier, there was no bonus. See, it's not about money. Is money nice? Yes. So remember that. Remember the unreal result that they are going to get from Sarah because of how Elena responded. And Elena didn't provide a bonus. In the first scenario, David did. Right? So option B is, I've noticed the client load has been heavy lately. Let's sit down, let's look at your workflow, and let's see how we together can restructure your priorities, your time management, so you can feel empowered to hit these goals and add more value to what you provide the company and put you on a better path for pay raises and things like that. Now, if you've been paying attention today, obviously option A is the transactional and option B is the transformational. And you can see how option B even utilizes a difficult situation as a learning opportunity, as a training opportunity, an opportunity to advance somebody's career forward, get them pay raises. And you also realize that option B, which is the transformational way, like I said, doesn't include a bonus. It includes empowerment, shows you care. And this is also how you're going to get rid of people that are never going to come around, because many people will just continue to make excuses. They won't take on the training. They're not coachable, right? This shows you that this person should not be working in your organization. And in that, the transactional is a direct swap of good behavior for removal of punishment. It's transactional. It's a means of exchange. Meanwhile, transformational, like I said, it focuses on the person's growth and systematic improvement. Constantly improving. Build your people, let them build your business. And if they're unbuildable, right? If you can't grow your people, you got to get rid of them. All right, scenario 2, the new idea. The situation, an entry-level staff member suggests a radical new way to handle customer complaints that would require changing the company's 10-year-old policy. Now, this one's an interesting one, because what also happens in organizations, and this is definitely a podcast for another time, and this is why I purposely put this scenario in, is because notice I said an entry-level staff member, right? So what can happen here is this becomes a threat to the person that is quote unquote their leader, right? Becomes a threat because now they think they're not as important, because who's this entry-level person giving ideas? There's a lot of people that I see in our niche inside practices, also other businesses outside of healthcare that we help, that get threatened when people, quote unquote, air quotes, below them come up with great ideas. And that's another one. You need to weed those people out of your organization. You need leaders that welcome new ideas, that get excited when people bring new ideas to them, not threatened. Right? So option A, this is how you respond. A current policy is tied to our ISO certification and our quarterly bonuses. So unless you can prove this won't lower our efficiency metrics, we need to stick to the manual. Boy, can't you just see? I can see so many of you out there responding that way, and arguably worse, I can see so many of the people that you have in leadership roles responding to their team that way, that just absolutely silences your team, buries their ideas, crushes their innovation. They will not come to you. They will shut down when you ask them questions. And then you sit there and go, boy, their attitude's not good. Or why aren't they showing up to work, motivated? Why aren't they going the extra mile? This happens all the time, everybody. You can see it. I know you can see it. And these are huge reasons why. It's the responses. Option B, wow, that's a bold perspective. Really proud of you. Matter of fact, it challenges how we have always done things, which I love, because that's how we get better for our customer. That's how we get better for our patient. It's how we get better for each other. It's how our organization, our business, our practice accomplishes something special beyond what we do. I tell you what, why don't you run a small pilot program with this week and present the results to the leadership team? I really look forward to it. And see, that response in itself is going to generate innovation. It's going to generate morale, high morale, good morale. It's going to motivate your team to come up with more ideas and keep going beyond. You can see the difference. Obviously, answer A was the transactional one, and it prioritizes the contract, the manual, the status quo. Right? This is so many of you out there. And please don't be the practice, the business owner, the doctor, the entrepreneur that tries to tell yourself this kind of stuff is not going on inside your organization. This is another huge reason why our practices and just in businesses outside of our niche just crush it, because we have such a high focus on an ongoing repetitive basis on the culture. Obviously, answer B was the transformational one, as it encourages intellectual stimulation. It also encourages risk, which many of you out there confuse yourself as an entrepreneur when you're just a business owner. A key, and I talked about this with Glenn Krieger's podcast that I have linked in the description below, right? One big essential key, the difference between an entrepreneur and a business owner, is entrepreneurs are constantly taking on risk. High risk, high reward. Business owners shy away from it. Let's take on another one. Next scenario, the emergency shift, let's call it. The situation is the team needs someone to work on a Saturday to finish a surprise fire drill project for a VIP client. Option A, you say, I need a volunteer for Saturday. Whoever comes in will get double time pay, a guaranteed Monday off, and an extra bonus. Okay. Leader 2, option B, is team, this client is critical to our mission of becoming the industry leader. If we pull this off, we prove we're the best in the business. Who's ready to step up and help us cross that finish line and deliver an unexpected go beyond experience for this very important client? And again, I want you to think, is money good? Of course, money's good. Everybody loves money. Right? The ones who say they don't, I don't know. I don't know if they're telling us the truth. But again, don't you see the difference? Right? Again, option A is obviously transactional. It relies on the quid pro quo, if you will. This for that, the transaction, the exchange. I'll pay you this if you do this. I'll reward you this way if you do this. But option B is transformational, relies on inspirational motivation, a shared vision. And if you're talking that way on an ongoing basis and nobody volunteers, you don't have the right people. You don't have the right people. But if you have people that want to be developed, you already have good people that want to continue to strive to be better, somebody, if not everybody, is going to volunteer to come in that Saturday to make it happen. And then you know what? There's nothing wrong with rewarding them for a bonus, but you don't have to say it, right? There's nothing wrong. You come in Monday, you hand a $150 check and you say, Janice, thank you so much for making this happen. I'm so proud of you, right? It's after the fact. It's not promise. It's not transactional. It's not a means of exchange. We're going to end on this one. We're going to call it the annual review, scenario number 4. The situation. It is time for a high performers yearly evaluation. Option A. This is how we do it. The review is you hit 105% of your sales quota. Per your contract, this entitles you to a 7% raise and a $5,000 bonus. Keep up these exact numbers next year, and you'll be rewarded again. Option B, your impact this year went beyond the numbers for your teammates, for me as your leader. Most importantly, our customers, our patients. And I would say even more important, I've noticed that you've become a real mentor to the juniors here, and you're making an impact in their life. You're making an impact in their career. A couple of your people under you have been promoted. They're making more money now. So where do you see yourself in 3 years? And how can I help you get the skills to get there? See, if you aren't giving reviews like that, everybody, obviously option B is the transformational. You're missing out on so much. See, the A response there, it's purely a financial exchange for performance. Again, a means of exchange, transactional. And B is transformational, is individualized consideration. I mentioned before, and I am going to do a podcast on those 4 essentials to becoming a transformational leader at some point. And your focus on long-term career pathing. See, you are guiding them, praising them, not around numbers, around people, experiences, innovation, making other people better. You're rewarding on that. You're creating bonuses around that. You're noticing it. You're giving praise for it. You're also asking them, where do they want to go? Where do you want to take your career? Because I want to be the one that helps you get there. I want to get you the training for it, the coaching for it. Ask yourself, how many of you give reviews like that? And it's probably not many. Stop being transactional, everybody. Business is not a means of exchange. It's not transactional. Business is about people. And there's a lot of things that come with that. I hope this changed your mindset. I'm really pumped about the parenting podcast of last month, rolling us into this topic. I'm very passionate about it, and I hope you walk away thinking differently. And I hope you reach out to New Patient Group. And I hope you let us come in to your practice this year, right now, and let us transform your culture and let us train your people on these skill sets that we are so well known for, to build their skill sets and grow them so they can turn and grow your business. I'm excited to do it. Make sure to come to Iconic as well, because Iconic is going to just blow you away with the transformational leadership training that will have all the great people wanting to work for you, teach you how to retain them, and will grow your business, your practice, unlike anything you've ever experienced. Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, we'll see you soon. And do me a favor, thumb this up if you're watching on YouTube, make some comments, get some chatter going. If you're listening on the audio experience channels, as always, write us a 5-star review on whatever channel you're listening to. And until next time, we appreciate your support. We'll see you soon.